Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy back with the Ink Road Stamps design team featuring Poison Kitty stamp set for this project. I'm bringing in all of my Emperor's New Grooves stamps. They're from a couple of years ago. I had yet to stamp them and ink them, and I was like, you know, it's time. I really wanted to do a Poison Kitty card. So the Emperor's New Groove is one of my personal favorite Disney movies that I found when I was an adult. I don't even know if my kids have watched this one, but I've watched this one multiple times. Yeah, no comment. So I'm bringing in this one. So if you want this one or you're looking for this one, go check out Ink Roads Roadies on Facebook. There's a buy sell trade album in there. So if you're looking for something, go and, post what you're looking for in there. I think you can still find the pictures on the website even though they're unavailable and retired, because you can also search for sentiments and images that way, like in the search bar, which I use a lot when I want a sentiment that has like a certain word in it. I'll type that into the search bar and then it'll pop up all the sets that might have that, might contain it. It's not perfect, but it's fairly close. And certain sentiments, I think she has them like all listed. So if you're looking for a specific phrase, it will pop up. It's an amazing feature, and I'm sure it was a boatload of work. So to start this one, I'm coming in with that Poison Kitty. I'm using some VersaMark, clear embossing powder. So it's a watermark it's a watermark ink, and so you use it. It works very well for embossing. It's my favorite clear ink to emboss with. So I am using Ranger's clear embossing powder for this one. It's just the regular one. It's not the ultra fine, but I do find it works very well for embossing smaller text and or line images over any white that I've tried. I do have a favorite white, but I don't end up using it here. I end up using the clear and it stays white when I watercolor over it. I'm also bringing in some Avery removable label sheets. They come in 8.5 by 11 sheets that run through your printer, but they work beautifully for masking because they're removable. So they're my favorite masking to do, or my favorite thing to use for masking, and economical price-wise. So I am going to stamp some other characters from the other two sets. So I think the one is, I don't remember what the other, I will have the sets all listed below if you are looking for specific names. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I'm sorry. So I am also going to do the two other characters in here. So Kronk and, of course, the Emperor himself. So I will stamp those in black. So I went and did an image search of Poison Kitty when I was, when I decided I was going to do Poison Kitty, because I'm like, I've had this one forever. I need to ink it up. I love the stamp. I love the movie. I put off things all the time. It happens. So I did cut those out with the Brother Scan and Cut. I did mask off the front kitty here, and then I'm going to add in my back characters in blackened ink. I'm also going to do the clear embossing over the top. I wouldn't have had to do clear embossing for this one, but by doing the clear embossing when you're watercoloring, it creates little wells, so you don't have to wait for things to dry, and you have less run issues, I guess, so things don't run into each other if you touch an already painted area. So I tend to do that a lot with watercoloring. It saves me time in the long run, because I don't have to worry about dry time, and I, don't have to worry about things running in between. So I had thought about putting a sentiment on the front right away, and then I changed my mind and thought, no, I'll add that later. So I will come in here and add all of my masks. I did speed this up a little bit for you because it is a little, to try to make sure that you're lining everything up just so you don't have a shadow. I did decide at this point when I was doing the masks that I had already decided that I was probably going to do some ink blending on my background just to save a little bit of time with the watercolor, but also it's hard to get a very smooth blend with watercolor. You get that, you know, watercolor look, and I didn't want a watercolor look in my background, and so I kind of avoided that. Yes, you get to see my phone come in for the camera option for design team pictures, because I tend to take a bunch of them during my make for design team stuff, so that way I get a nicer image that way, and I don't have to quit rolling the camera. So I'm just coming in with a ruler and then a micron, which is a waterproof. Usually it's alcohol marker friendly as well. But I'm just going to come in with that micron pen and kind of build my scene. Now, if I could do this again, I would have done my lines there coming down, because I kind of wanted it to look like big bricks. I would have probably angled them in towards the kitty, so it looked more perspective wise, like, you know, like bigger, so the floor was like, I don't know, bigger up front, smaller in the back. I don't, you know, I would have angled them. No, I probably would have done it backwards, right? So angled them towards the back and bigger towards the front. Yeah, that's what I was doing. Kind of like that starburst effect. So it looks like you're, you know, time and space continue, you know, the front and the back. I hope that makes sense. For my background here, I did decide to bring in some Lawn Fawn Crunchy Leaf ink. It is also that waterproof alcohol marker friendly ink, and so I didn't have to worry about it running. I wanted it to blend in a little bit to that background, but I wanted it to still have some texture, or to add some texture. So I just selectively stamped that image without having, I could have done stamp surgery, but truthfully, you know, it was easy enough, especially with that little ink pad, to kind of just hit exactly what I needed. You could have also masked off before if you were worried about, you know, stamping, and you could definitely do that with a stamp platform. So I'm going to come in here with some Distress tea dye ink and then some gathered twigs. So I did the tea dye up on top to just kind of give me that base, I guess, wall background. And then I'm going to bring in, I just used some sticky notes here to kind of mask off my other part. And I just brought a little bit of that crunchy twig down. I decided it wasn't the right tone that I wanted, and so I chose not to finish it. But I did give me a little bit of base color there to work with, so I didn't have to color in or watercolor the whole thing. But I think I ended up doing it anyways. It happens. I wanted some definition on to make it look like bricks. So that was kind of, I just got the base coat on there and called it good. I'm going to bring in my Twinkling. I'm going to bring in a plethora of watercolor mediums. I was planning to just use my Twinkling H2Os, and I was like, I couldn't find exactly the right colors that I wanted to use for some of the images. So I'm going to bring in some aqua pigments from Brutus Monroe in the Gilded color. If you can't find this particular one, I don't know if they make it anymore. They do have, I think it's Dr.Ph.Martin at Michael's. I have found a gold that is similar to that. I think it's a watercolor one. It's in, you know, their artist area, kind of by their watercolor stuff. It was close to their No Bleed white watercolor. So it's, I think it's in a dropper bottle. It might even be more like a calligraphy ink, but I think it could work the same way. It would definitely work for gold splatter. Amen. So I am bringing in Distress Re-Inker, or Distress Inkier in Vintage Photo. It's one of my favorite browns. I know, we shouldn't have, does anyone else have a favorite brown? Or is that just me? It might just be me. It's okay. It's one of my favorite browns. So I also brought in a little bit of gold along with that brown that I pulled from wherever. And I'm going to bring in, kind of just mixing my palette here and kind of adding. Now, I will say this, when you come in with, so Twinkling H2Os don't color exactly like regular watercolors, so keep that in mind if you're using them. I don't know. And then, of course, because I added the gold to my Distress ink, it has a different look to it, I think, than watercolor. It's kind of more of an opaque-y, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It just doesn't look like a watercolor. It's definitely thicker bodied than a watercolor. Anyways, so I did add some gold there. Then I added a little bit of shadow underneath Poison Kitty. And then I'm going to take in, and I'm going to start coloring my characters. And of course, for this, I definitely use my phone. I definitely use the Google machine and look at images and kind of copy color, you know, color patterns. My memory's not that good. Like, I couldn't tell you exactly what color Kronk's outfits are and such. And so, yes, it's just a handy tool. And you wouldn't have to follow them. Sometimes I like to. Especially if you're struggling with inspiration or, yeah, looking up images online and kind of going off of color palettes or just kind of copying somebody else's stuff. It kind of helps, you know, get you out of a slump. It works. So I'm coming in with that purple here. And I just love how that clear embossing powder gives you that white outline. I just think it's kind of fun. It is a little bit harder to color, I'm not going to lie, because you have to kind of look a little bit sometimes. It also helps to have your stamp sitting close by, because then you can look at the stamp itself to kind of see where some of those lines might be, or maybe what something is if you are unsure. It definitely helps. See? You can bring it in. I brought it in because I was like, I wanted to make sure I was getting the eyes right and the nose and all of those things. So that kind of helps work it. And then I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to keep adding color to it to add some highlights, some lowlights, and get exactly what I'm thinking, you know, in my head, how I want the coloring to be. So just adding layers of those colors to get darker and, I don't know, some more shadow, some more depth and dimension. And my camera stopped. Yep, I hit that half-hour mark, and yep. So I didn't catch it right away, but I don't think we missed a whole lot. Just coloring in the little vial, or the pink in the vial. And then I'm just going to add in a little bit more, you know, once everything dries, you can definitely go back and add a little bit more depth and dimension with some more color. And then, of course, bringing in some more of that vintage. Vintage photo is probably my favorite ink color to make skin tones with. You can water it down immensely and get lighter skin tones. You can leave it darker and get darker skin tones. It works. It's a pleasing color to me. I think it's just got the right warmth to it for skin tones. So I finished coloring in my other pieces, and then for my little kitty eyes here, I was like, not happy with them. So I did bring in some alcohol markers here, and I'm coloring over the top of my clear embossing powder. So this just allows you to kind of, you know, because alcohol markers pretty much color on anything, so they dried beautifully on top of that embossing powder. So I just followed the embossing powdered lines. So to kind of add in some of those darker whiskers, and then of course the eyeballs, and a little bit where the embossing powder would have maybe been black if I'd have stamped it in black. I could color that in with that deep dark purple. Then I just come in with a very fine tip paintbrush and that Dr.Ph.Martin Bleedproof white watercolor paint, and add that for highlights and whatever else maybe I needed to get fixed on my image. So then I'm going to bring in a dark purple that kind of coordinates with what's inside the vial there for my background paper, or my matte paper, I guess, like what I'm going to matte it on. And then I stamped my sentiment here with some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then I'm going to heat set it with that clear embossing powder again. And then I'll bring in my Guillotine style Tim Holtz trimmer here, and I like to use, so there's like that clear, what is it called, like your finger protector, right? It kind of has about an 1/8 inch between that guide slash protector there and the blade. So I tend to use that as my placement. So it kind of, I line up the edge of the sentiment or the word onto that line and then cut, and then I get a nice even line all the way around. I am also going to trim down my actual finished panel here so it has a nice pink matte all the way around it. So with the card base, I just added all of those pieces together with some glue and glued them down. So there is the finished card front for you. It sparkles and shines because of those twinkling H2Os. And the inside, let me guess, you have a great personality to finish it all off. So I hope you guys have an amazing one. Keep getting inky. Bye!